Most women quit creatine for exactly the reason they should keep taking it. They think it's making their hormones worse. They think it's causing the bloating. They think it's making them gain weight, so they stop. But here's the question. What if creatine isn't actually the problem? What if it's the way that you're taking it? I'm Dr. Nirvana, and today I'm going to show you the 3 biggest creatine mistakes I see women make over and over again in my practice. By the end of this video, you'll understand why creatine becomes more important as estrogen starts to decline, why some women get bloated while others feel amazing, and exactly how I recommend taking creatine to get the benefits without feeling like it's working against your hormones. Because here's something almost nobody talks about. Creatine isn't just a muscle supplement. In fact, one of the biggest reasons I recommend it to women has very little to do with building bigger muscles. I'll explain what I mean in just a minute. But first, let's talk about why creatine suddenly becomes so important after 40. If you're interested in learning more about topics like this, hit that like button. Most women think the biggest hormonal change during perimenopause is hot flashes. It's not. One of the biggest changes is something you can't even see happening. You're slowly losing muscle, beginning in your 30s and accelerating during perimenopause and menopause. You naturally start losing lean muscle every year. That matters because muscle isn't just there to make you look toned. Muscle is your metabolic engine. The less muscle you have, the fewer calories you burn. The harder it becomes to regulate blood sugar, the easier it becomes to gain weight around your midsection. Sound familiar? Here's the part that surprised even me when I first started digging into the research. Creatine may be one of the simplest ways to help fight back. When it's combined with resistance training, study after study show women become stronger, preserve more muscle, and maintain better physical function as they age. That's a pretty incredible return from one simple supplement. But muscles aren't actually the reason I'm most excited about creatine. Think about this. What's another major health concern women have after menopause? It's not muscle, it's bone loss. As estrogen declines, your bones gradually become weaker. That's why so many women are diagnosed with osteopenia or osteoporosis later in life. Here's what's fascinating though. Research suggests that when creatine is combined with strength training, it may also help support bone formation and slow the loss of bone mineral density. So you're not just helping your muscles, you're helping support your entire framework. But even that isn't my favorite benefit because there's one benefit that patients mention to me all the time, and it has nothing to do with the gym. Have you ever walked into a room and forgotten why you were there? Forgotten someone's name? Lost your train of thought halfway through a sentence? Most women blame aging. Others blame menopause, and hormones certainly do play a role. But here's what many people don't realize. Your brain is one of the most energy-hungry organs in your entire body. It constantly needs ATP, your cell's energy currency, to function properly. Creatine helps replenish those energy stores. A lot of research suggests it may help support working memory, mental performance, reaction time, and even mood during hormonal transitions. So, when people tell you creatine is only for bodybuilders, they're missing most of the story, which brings us back to the original question. If creatine can help support muscle, metabolism, bones, and even your brain, why do so many women tell me, Dr. Nirvana, I tried it and I felt awful? That's where things get interesting because almost every woman who has that experience is making one simple mistake before she ever opens the bottle. Let's start with the biggest one. You're expecting creatine to work like a fat burner. Here's the biggest mistake I see. Women start taking creatine, then 2 weeks later tell me, I don't think it's working. So then I ask them one question. Have you been strength training? Most of the time, the answer is no. Here's the thing. Creatine doesn't build muscle. You do. Creatine simply gives your muscles more energy so they can perform better. Think of it like putting premium fuel into your car. Premium fuel doesn't make your car drive faster itself. It just helps the engine perform better. Your muscles work the same way. Creatine helps replenish ATP, your body's energy currency. That means you can often do one more repetition, lift a little heavier, recover a little faster between sets. Those tiny improvements may not seem like much today, but over 6 months or a year, they completely change what your body is capable of. That's why research consistently shows the biggest benefits happen when creatine is combined with resistance training, not endless cardio, not walking, strength training, which means if you're taking creatine without challenging your muscles, you're leaving most of its benefits on the table. Now, let's talk about the mistake almost nobody warns women about: hydration. I can't tell you how many times I've heard this. Dr. Nirvana, ever since I started creatine, my face feels puffy. My rings don't fit anymore. I feel bloated. Most women immediately blame the creatine, but that's usually not the whole story. Remember, creatine pulls water into your muscle cells. That's actually one of the reasons it works. Your muscles become better hydrated. They perform better, recover better, produce energy more efficiently. The problem happens when your muscles are asking for more water, but you never increase the amount you're drinking. Now, your body is trying to redistribute that water. And that's when some women begin noticing puffiness or bloating. One of my patients, we'll call her Sarah, started creatine because she wanted to preserve muscle as she entered perimenopause. The first couple of weeks were great. She felt stronger. She was lifting heavier. Then one morning she woke up, her rings barely fit, her face looked puffy. She stopped taking creatine immediately. When she came into my office, she said, I knew creatine wasn't for me. But after talking through everything, the creatine wasn't really the problem. She was drinking the exact same amount of water she always had. Nothing else had changed. Once we increased her hydration and adjusted a few other lifestyle factors, the bloating improved. And she continued getting stronger. That's why one of the simplest things I recommend is adding another 2 to 3 glasses of water throughout the day when you begin taking creatine, and maybe with some electrolytes too. It sounds almost too simple, but sometimes the simplest changes make the biggest difference. Now, here's the mistake I think is the most important one. Women assume there's one perfect creatine protocol. There isn't. Every woman is different. Some women tolerate creatine beautifully. Others are more sensitive to changes in hydration. Some are still cycling every month. Others are in perimenopause. Others have already gone through menopause. Those hormonal changes influence how your body feels from week to week. That's why I don't believe supplements should ever be a one-size-fits-all approach. Your body isn't a textbook, it's constantly changing. Instead of asking, what's the perfect creatine protocol? Ask, how is my body responding? Are you staying hydrated? Are you strength training consistently? Are you sleeping well? Are you eating enough protein? Those things will often determine your results far more than obsessing over tiny changes in dosage. And that's actually the biggest lesson I want you to take away. Creatine isn't magic. It's a tool, an incredibly effective tool, but only when it's part of a strategy for supporting healthy aging. So now that we've covered the biggest mistakes, let's talk about exactly how I recommend taking creatine if your goal is preserving muscle, supporting your metabolism, and feeling your best through perimenopause and menopause. So after everything we've talked about, you're probably wondering, how should I actually take it? The good news is you don't need anything complicated. You don't need a loading phase. You don't need expensive versions that promise better absorption. For most women, 3 to 5 grams of creatine monohydrate every day is exactly where I start. It's the form that's been studied the most, it's effective, and it's usually the most affordable. I always recommend taking it with meals that contain both protein and carbohydrates. That can help improve uptake into the muscles, and many women find it easier on their stomach than taking it alone. And remember, hydration isn't optional. If you start creatine but never increase your water intake, you're making it much harder for your body to respond the way it's supposed to. One of the biggest questions I get is, how long before it starts working? Here's what I tell my patients. Don't expect to wake up next week looking completely different. That's not how creatine works. Instead, watch for the small wins. You might notice your workouts feel easier, you're recovering faster, you're able to squeeze out 1 or 2 extra repetitions, you're lifting a little heavier than you were last month. Those tiny improvements compound over time. 6 months from now, those extra repetitions become more muscle. More muscle becomes a healthier metabolism. A healthier metabolism makes it easier to maintain your weight as hormones change. That's why consistency beats perfection every single time. Here's what I hope you remember after watching this video. Most people think creatine is simply a muscle supplement. I don't. I think of it as a healthy aging supplement. Yes, it helps preserve muscle, but it also supports strength. It helps you get more from resistance training. And it may help support healthy bones, brain, energy, memory, reaction time, and your overall mental performance. When you put it all together, creatine becomes much bigger than something people take at the gym, especially for women entering perimenopause and menopause. There's one mistake I never want you to make. Don't expect creatine to do the work for you. No supplement can replace strength training, adequate protein, quality sleep, managing stress, or eating a nutrient-dense diet. Those are still the foundation. Creatine simply helps strengthen the foundation. Think of it this way. If your lifestyle is the house, creatine isn't the house. It's one of the tools that helps build a stronger one. So let's go back to where we started. Remember Sarah, the woman who almost threw away her creatine because she thought it was causing all of her problems? She wasn't failing because creatine didn't work. She simply didn't understand how to use it. Once we adjusted her hydration, focused on strength training, and looked at her overall lifestyle instead of blaming one supplement, everything changed. She became stronger, she felt better, and she stopped fearing creatine altogether. That's why I wanted to make this video, because I don't want women missing out on one of the most well-researched supplements we have simply because nobody explained how to use it properly. If you're wondering whether creatine is right for you, or you're trying to figure out which supplements actually make sense for your hormones, metabolism, thyroid, or gut health, I'd love to help. You can schedule a 15-minute consultation using the link in the description below. And before you go, I have another video that pairs perfectly with this one because there's more that I recommend to almost every woman over 40, and it's probably not what you're thinking. If you want to continue supporting your hormones, your metabolism, and healthy aging, click on that video next. I'll see you over there.